Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Just want to make sure I can see everybody. When we look at how the universe is created, and we always say created, and we use the verb created, but then immediately the commentaries and everyone's going to point us to the fact that actually nothing is created. It's all organized. We're being told at the very beginning that we're encountering a reality of chaos. Everything's there, it's just everything is merged and confused and chaotic, and everything is in tension and fighting everything else and conflicts, and it's all just chaotically there. The only thing we're told that is created is that very first spark of light, right? Where God says, let there be light. And then that lasts for the first 3 days. By the fourth day, we get the sun, the moon, the stars. That light goes away, so we never see that again. So it's created for a function and then disappears on us. And we're left with, okay, so exactly, we keep calling it creation, but exactly what's going on. We look at it carefully and we understand really what's going on is order is being brought to chaos. That's actually what's going on. Things are being moved around. Water is pooled together, we're told. And when the water is pooled together, oh look, there was land under there the whole time. The land isn't created, it's just now emerged. And then God says to the earth, release the seeds that you have in you, and now things are growing. So it's not that the seeds were created, they were always there. It's just that they had no impetus and no trigger in which to be released and in which to flourish. So we look at creation as it's being told in the Torah, and we understand that what's happening is that it's really organizing order to chaos to allow things to emerge and to express themselves as fully as they can. And we then look at the order of that, and we say, this happened on day 1, this happened on day 2, this happened on day 3. So really what we're doing is we're watching order. It's a system of release. Hibernation, transformation, everything that's in there, we're looking at the idea that now things should not be pushing on each other and inhibiting things, but there should be release and there should be growth. There should be no separations that will bring about chaos. And in fact, every day God looks at what had happened that day, and it says, Vayar ki tov, and God looks at it and says, oh, that's good. Every day except Mondays. Mondays don't get that. So when we look at what's happening in creation, the first day of creation, great. We've got that primordial light. It's good. Second day of creation, God separates the waters above from the waters below so that there is atmosphere above, there will be waters below, oceans, streams, everything we know, and then a space in the middle, which is the sky. So we now have a space in the middle separating waters above, waters below. Seems great, except God doesn't pronounce that it's good. And then moves on to the third day, which is Tuesday, and twice God says it's good. So in totality, we get the pronouncements we need, but we're not getting it on a Monday. We get it twice on a Tuesday. So in Judaism, we pay attention to this, and we call Tuesday Kefel Ki Tov. Twice it got pronounced, it is good. So get married on a Tuesday. Start a new job on a Tuesday. Move into your new house on a Tuesday. Sign the papers for the house on a Tuesday. Tuesdays are twice blessed. Monday? Yes, yeah. Maybe not. Maybe Mondays we kind of push through to Tuesday. But then, of course, the question is, what's wrong with Monday? What was so bad about Monday that God didn't pronounce it is good? And we look at Monday and we say, oh, see, something different happened on Monday. Because Monday, God separated waters. God separated to put space in the waters, waters above from waters below. And it's the first time that God is introducing separation into creation. That's not good. It's necessary, but it's not blessed. Because the idea is that our goal is never separation. Our goal is to, in fact, find the ways that things connect to each other, find the ways that things allow other things to flourish and to grow, not to separate. That's a concept we don't want to bless in creation. So Monday doesn't get blessed. And when we look at that idea that a separation is not natural to creation, we come back to looking at primordial Adam. If in fact this being is half male, half female, equally female, great. And then God looks at it and says, it's not good that it's alone. It's a singular being. It can't even see itself, let alone anything else. This isn't good. I have to separate it. Now I'm going to put it to sleep. And we all accept that as, of course you'd put the being to sleep, because it's surgery. You're going to be physically separating this thing into two. It's going to hurt. It's surgery. Put it to sleep. But then, of course, we're thinking, I think that's my view in my reality, that it's surgery and it's going to hurt. This is God. If God doesn't want it to hurt, it's not going to hurt. If God wants to separate the being, separate the being. What do you have to put the being to sleep? What's the sleeping got to do with it? And the answer the sages give us is memory. God is now separating the being. We don't like separation. God didn't bless the day that separation occurred. And now separation will occur with this being. And God doesn't want humanity to remember the separation. Put the being to sleep. It'll stop the memory from forming. And when the being wakes up, there will be two. And there will be no memory of how it happened, because we don't want to embed separation into the consciousness of humanity. We want humanity to always strive for union and coming together. And so the being is put to sleep for only that reason. Once we see those separations occurring, creation keeps moving forward, and we see that everything moves to rejoin. Everything has this push and this drive to come back together and rejoin. People will actually root to land. That's the definition of nationalism, is that we create connections to land. That's us rooting. And that's because we came from the earth, so we want to root back to it. Plants will always continue to root into the earth. Air breathers will always sustain themselves on what the trees are giving into the air, which is the oxygen. We are all now reconnecting with each other to actually push against any kind of separation, which is how creation was formed. It is how we're supposed to be moving. And then we look at that week of creation, and then suddenly the Torah introduces us to this beautiful garden and a tree that doesn't fit. There's a tree in that garden, the tree of knowledge, and it doesn't fit. And it doesn't fit, not because of the reasons we think. And humanity is told, eat everything. You have permissions. Don't eat that. Why not? Why not eat that? What, is knowledge bad? Are we not supposed to be eating from the tree of knowledge? What's wrong with eating from that tree? Is there something intrinsically wrong with knowledge? And are we going to be punished for eating from the tree? Is knowledge so taboo that God is now going to punish everybody for seeking knowledge? We're watching a problem brew here. And if we look at what humanity does, because honestly, within hours, we're going to head and eat that tree. It didn't even take us long. Within hours, we're headed right there. And then if we look at all of it and we say, oh, you see, now God's going to punish us. So the man is going to be punished. The woman is going to be punished. Humanity is going to be exiled out of that garden. Why? Why are we being punished for knowledge? What's the problem? And so we look in the Zohar, and the Zohar tells us something very, very interesting. The Zohar tells us that Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai said, this verse is all but intolerable to recite and impossible to explain. What they're talking about is what happens afterwards. So we go to the tree, we eat the tree of knowledge, and by the way, it's not that it gives us knowledge because we didn't have knowledge. If we didn't have knowledge, God can't command us anything. God can't tell us be fruitful and multiply because we have no knowledge of what does that mean. God can't tell us you can eat everything, but you can't eat from there if I don't have knowledge of good, evil, yes, no, obedience, disobedience. It's meaningless what God is telling me. I have to have some knowledge, otherwise I can't process. So we're still understanding, well, what is the thing there that we weren't supposed to do? And we go back to it and we say, okay, so what's the problem with the tree? And then the Zohar points something out that was sitting there all the time, we just didn't notice. That is the only thing in creation that's named with a dichotomy. It's the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Nothing else is named with opposites. We have a tree of life that's in there. It's not the tree of life and death, it's the tree of life. Why not just leave this thing as the tree of knowledge? But the key is it embodies dichotomies. It embodies black and white. It embodies opposites. God isn't telling us don't seek knowledge. God is saying, if you ingest that knowledge, you change everything. Because now what you've done is you've created a world of this or that. And now we can have perspectives like, it's my way, not your way. It's my way or the highway. You're free to leave, because it's got to be my way. And only when we ingest that kind of knowledge and understanding does everything change. It's not that humanity is punished for seeking knowledge, but the consequences occur now. Because now the view of everything is no longer everything seeks union and everything seeks to be back again, because now I don't want union with you if you're not agreeing with me. It's my way or thank you very much. It's good or evil. It now gets introduced as black and white and as dichotomies. And because of this, Cain can kill Abel. Because Cain can look at the fact that they both brought sacrifices to God, and God preferred one and not the other, and now Cain can say, oh, it's either or. God isn't favoring both of us in different ways. God is only favoring you. I hate you. And then all the dichotomies begin to unravel. It's life or death. It's not a dispute. And now Cain will kill Abel, because the world perspective has changed. When God confronts Cain and says, what did you do? Your brother's blood is screaming out to me. It's an interesting moment, because the Midrash looks at the word to me and says it actually could equally mean against me. Your brother's blood is screaming out against me, says God. Accusing me, says God. And God turns to Cain and says, what did you do? And then Cain does something astounding, because he asks a question and says, am I my brother's keeper? And that's where the emphasis should be, say the sages. Cain isn't saying, am I my brother's keeper? Cain is saying, oh, wait a minute, you're putting that one on me? Am I my brother's keeper? I didn't think that's how this worked. And the Midrash continues and steps in and says, to say that question and God's response is almost unthinkable, says Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. It seems to regard Cain and Abel as two gladiators wrestling in the king's presence, where if the king desires it, he may separate them. And if he does not desire to separate them, one gladiator prevails over the other and is about to kill him. The other may cry out, who will intercede for me with the king? Therefore God said, since I, the king, did not interfere between Cain and Abel, the voice of your brother's blood cries out against me. The victim is accusing God and saying, why didn't you stop it? Where were you? You're the king, we're gladiators. It was the moment of life and death. You could have stopped it. Why didn't you stop it? They go on and say, another moment, in another comment, Cain said to God, am I my brother's keeper? You are the keeper of all creatures, yet you call me to account for him? Cain's question may be understood by the parable of a thief who stole some vessels during the night and was not caught. The following morning, the gatekeeper did catch him and asked, why did you steal the vessels? The thief replied, I, thief that I am, did not slacken at my trade, but your trade is to keep watch at the gate. Why did you slacken in your occupation? So in other words, the question Cain is asking is saying, I'm human. I do the things you wired me to do. You can't now come and accuse me of stuff. You gave me free will. I chose. You can't now come and punish me. You gave me an inclination of jealousy. You gave me perspectives. You gave this ability within me to harm others. Where were you? You're the guard. You're the gatekeeper. You're the guardian. Cain is saying to God, Abel's blood should be accusing you and calling out to you. And it is that unending discussion of who is to guard whom and to who does the victim look. It's an ongoing tension between God and humanity. Who should be guarding the vulnerable? Who is responsible for our fellow human beings? The question of, am I my brother's keeper, is the first question humanity asks in the Torah, and it never gets an answer. God never says, yes, you're your brother's keeper. It's the first question we ask, and there is no answer that is provided. But by the end of the book, we're shown the outcome. Because at the end of Genesis, Joseph is kidnapped by his brothers because they're jealous of the love of the father. And it is mirroring what's going on with Cain and Abel. And Joseph ultimately will be sold into slavery, taken away, kept away, as he screams from the pits they've thrown him in, and they ignore his screams because they just don't think he's their responsibility. If we aren't our brother's guardians, then we're the brothers who turn our backs on the screams of Joseph and everyone else who screams that they need help and they need a moment of human kindness. Elie Wiesel once said something so simple and yet so astounding. He said, think of Adam and Eve in the garden, given the choice of two trees. One would give them immortality, one would give them knowledge. We reached for knowledge. It's not something we should ever be punished for. It's not something we ever are punished for. Knowledge is never bad. Knowledge is never something we should keep ourselves from. It is something we are actually commanded to seek out and find. But what's happening here is not that they're seeking knowledge, it's the name of the tree. The problem is what the tree itself embodies, the kind of knowledge it embodies. And we're being told that when we accept and bring into us to ingest and digest the view that we can express actions based on knowledge of good and evil, black and white, me and not you, the inevitable outcome is Cain and Abel. The inevitable outcome is to turn to God and say, that's not me, that's you. You're supposed to be watching everybody, which will bring us to Joseph, which will bring slavery to everybody. We all then sit in a pit screaming out because nobody thinks it's their responsibility. All of those things are the things that move against the vision of creation. It heads us back to chaos, which the rabbis warn us, God didn't get rid of chaos in creation and Genesis. According to the rabbis, it's a thin green line that God pushed back to the outskirts of the universe that sits there always waiting to push back in. When we look at creation, we don't so much say, oh, it's the miracle of God creating the universe. That can't really speak to me. I've got nothing to do with that. I can't create that way. But it is to sit there and understand that all I have to do to bring chaos back into the world is stop listening to these moments, is to sit there and say, I'm not even asking if I'm my brother's keeper because it has nothing to do with me. That's a problem over there. It's to sit there and understand that it isn't about creating. It's about maintaining. It's about making sure that everything is allowed to flow and connect with everything else, that everything invites everything else to open and express itself in beautiful, united ways, the way creation tells us it should, to always listen to the voices around us, the voices of our fellow human being, to remember acts of human kindness is how we are created in the image of God. Shabbat Shalom.